Good morning and welcome to the first of the ITSMF Australia webinar series for 2013. Successful strategies for customer supplier integration, the case study at Datacom. I'm Greg Porter and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, which is proudly brought to you with the support of ProActive Services. ProActive, of course, a well-known Australian company in the IT service management space, established in Australasia back in 1987. ProActive provides a comprehensive suite of consulting and education services designed to help organisations transform the business of IT. Back in 1995, ProActive was instrumental in introducing ITIL to Australia and New Zealand and has provided thought leadership in service management ever since, training in excess of 35,000 students. ProActive was also a significant partner of Toyota Australia in winning the ITSMF Industry Award Project of the Year in 2012. I'm here today at the Melbourne offices of ProActive with one of the authorities of our industry, Bob Philipson. Bob is ProActive's Managing Director and has been visionary in seeing the importance of ITIL and its future in moving to introduce ITIL in Australia and New Zealand. Bob also saw the importance of a forum to progress education and knowledge sharing amongst the industry and was a founding member of the IT Service Management Forum in Australia. So thank you, Bob. You're part of the reason we're all here today, and welcome and thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I'm not sure if I quite recognise myself from your description, but never mind. So, good afternoon, everyone.
Yep. Now, Bob, of course, is widely acknowledged as a thought leader, and he continues to drive innovation in the area of business-aligned improvement. And shortly, Bob will provide us context and insight into how to manage customer-supplier relationships. I'm also delighted that we're joined by Datacom Systems Manager of Quality and Service Assurance, Roger Faithfull, all the way from Wellington, New Zealand. With over 40 years IT experience, Roger has found his ideal role with Datacom, where he's been instrumental in having ITIL adopted as the basis for services delivered to Datacom's outsourced customers. A little later on in our webinar today, Roger will outline how Datacom has improved the quality of their service delivery through their capability assessments. As we're going through today's webinar with both Bob's and Roger's presentations, as you think of questions, please type them in the chat window on the right of your screen, and we'll come back to questions at the end of the presentations. Of course, if you enjoy today's webinar, we have our national conference, Lead It 2013 in Canberra from the 7th to the 9th of August. So keep an eye on your email boxes for more information, and we hope to see you in Canberra. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Bob. Bob, we're really looking forward to your presentation, and thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Sorry I jumped the gun a little bit too soon there earlier. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar. I would like to thank you for your attendance and also to thank Roger and Datacom for agreeing to play what is the most important part in its delivery. We are pleased to have had the opportunity to work with Datacom over a period of many years and to have played a role in their ITSM journey. It is very pleasing to see how Datacom has grown in that period, and Roger will talk about how he and his team, or what he and his team have done using the capability assessment portal that has contributed to Datacom's success. The structure of the webinar is that I'm going to talk first about the role of ITSM in making the engagement of an external service provider a success from the standpoint of both parties. Then Roger is going to talk about how he and his team have used our capability assessment portal to improve the quality of their customer engagements and to reduce their costs. As an internal IT service provider, it is my belief that you need to have a level of ITSM capability to achieve the maximum benefit from external service provision. Ideally, you would have a sourcing strategy based on the alignment of your IT service strategy to your business strategy, and you would have input from service portfolio management. I would suggest that the key consideration in your sourcing strategy is how that is going to help you demonstrate the value that IT brings to the business. Remember that you cannot outsource your IT strategy or risk or responsibility. External service providers have their own challenges, as they need to be able to demonstrate to their clients that they are making a difference to their business and not just meeting SLAs. I believe that it is the external provider that has ITSM at the heart of their business model who will achieve the most success. In this new world where external service providers are a key part of the client's IT service solution, it is no longer good enough that they be treated as a supplier or vendor. They need to be properly integrated into the customer's overall IT service lifecycle if the engagement is to work effectively. To achieve this, the service provider must be trusted and to be seen to work in an open and transparent manner. Roger will talk about what Datacom are doing in that respect. So moving on to the next slide. So hopefully you can see this next slide. So using external service providers to deliver services is not a new idea. But as the complexity of IT has increased, so the complexity of the engagement has also increased together with the client's expectations. The growing demand for external service provision is fueled by the likes of infrastructure as a service and cloud computing, and it requires more effective governance model and closer meshing between the client and the providers, and between multiple providers working with the same client. You will see on the screen some of the reasons for using external providers, some of the risks and some of the complexities of making it work effectively. Just picking up on some of the what you see on the screen, currently innovation is a hot topic as the enterprise looks for IT to help respond to their ever-changing needs. Innovation is a key way for IT to be seen to be adding value to the business, itself another hot topic. Usually the IT organization will outsource some of what it does in order to free up resources and budget to undertake innovation. To be successful means developing the necessary capability, and this usually requires a level of transformation within the IT organization. In that context, it is interesting to read about what seems to be a trend where the business have taken over responsibility for the IT strategy themselves and in the process downgraded the role of the CIO. This suggests that IT in those organizations was not seen as adding value. Whilst it is not uncommon to outsource to reduce risk and cost, recent research shows that cost reductions are not always achieved. Also, as before, you cannot outsource risk and responsibility. There is a view that by outsourcing all or part of your IT service capability, that IT service management is no longer needed. This is obviously not true. Rather, it is more that the nature of the ITSM priorities and activities need to reflect the responsibilities of the organization when they have outsourced some of their services. As regards to risks, these need to be managed through the likes of a due diligence exercise of your service provider and the implementation of a suitable ITSM governance model, something we will cover later. You should now be seeing slide 3. In considering issues for both customers and service providers that affect the success of an engagement, one such issue is escalation of the client's cost. This was previously mentioned, and the research was by IDC, and it is recent. It identified a number of reasons shown on this slide for the increased costs, particularly the first set of bullet points, client costs escalate and service quality inadequate. I do not think the first point on the slide will come as a surprise, but the issues identified in the second point relating to service quality are not always as widely recognized. The magnifying effect of those 2 points when using multiple external providers can be severe and requires the right solution to work properly. From the external provider's perspective, the maturity of the client is a risk. E.g., poor client change management can and does impact on the provider, who can end up carrying the can. The easier the provider's engagement model is, the faster and more effective the transition project will be, and the more consistent the quality of the subsequent service. The absence of a well-defined customer integration model typically leads to handcrafted solutions for each client or similar, and that means higher costs and less flexible resourcing. In extreme cases, such engagements can consume very large sums of money, of the external provider's money, and result in the delivery of poor service. Roger has used the capability assessment portal to reduce the number of process variants and to improve process maturity, enabling a standard engagement model to be built. This has enabled a more flexible resourcing model, as resources do not need to know many different engagement models in order to be able to work readily in different organizations, different customers. This reduces service costs and improves service quality. Another important aspect of effective client engagement is that the external provider works closely with the client in order to properly integrate their services into the client's overall IT service lifecycle framework. If the provider is constrained in their ability to make their contribution visible to key client stakeholders, then they will almost certainly struggle to demonstrate the business value they bring, and will only have the SLA conformance to differentiate themselves from other providers. Last but not least, if as a service provider you're in the multi-source environment and engagement across providers is not collaborative, then it is likely that your bottom line will be effective. However, remember that if you are one of the customer's IT managers, you will carry the can for poor service quality irrespective of who is at fault. A focus solely on profit and margins rather than service by external providers is not in the long-term interests of the client or the provider. You should now be seeing the next slide. So how do we address the issues we have identified so that we can ensure that all parties win? We need to start with governance, but governance that is built on ITSM principles, practices, and an ITSM mindset, not a vendor management mindset. Whilst there are still IT organizations who do not see the critical role and value of ITSM, there are an increasing number of IT organizations, including some of the largest, who do see ITSM as crucial to the success of service provision, in particular where external service providers are involved. For the reasons already identified, it is clear that when working with multiple external providers, the customer needs to call the shots. In considering the integrated ICT model, governance model on this slide, it's important to include the overall IT service lifecycle model. This is because even if it's only the infrastructure that has been outsourced, there are other parts of the IT organization that need to be involved with the external provider over and above those who operate just in service operation. And we need to understand how that can be achieved. As you will see, the Service Management Office is where the key governance for managing external service provision, and called out here as Service Integration Management and Customer Integration Management. They live in the Service Management Office, and more about this shortly. The Lifecycle Management Office is about connecting all of the different organization silos of IT together into the IT service lifecycle framework by integrating all of the relevant frameworks like enterprise architecture, program portfolio management, etc., etc. It is assumed that ITSM is the overarching framework. Now should be seeing the next slide. The Service Management Office, usually a virtual setup, is a construct that is equally applicable to internal and external service providers. The role of the Service Management Office is shown on the slide, and we have previously covered most of the points. In terms of governance, two of the key bullet points are in bold and underlined on the slide. Ideally, all involved with internal service provision need to have standardized processes and tools, something that is not always the case. However, once external providers are involved, it may be neither practical nor desirable to mandate standardization. What is essential is that the internal service provider's processes integrate effectively with those operated by the external providers. And this is where supplier integration management is important. Managed service providers also find themselves in the position of having to integrate the ITSM processes with those of their customers. Again, it might not be practical or desirable to simply adopt each customer's processes. Sometimes the customer's processes are less capable than those of the provider. Use of different processes may cause confusion when external provider staff support a number of different customers, or there is a drive to realize economies of scale by the provider using one set of support tools rather than many. Again, to achieve effective linkage between the customer and the provider processes, a structured approach to customer integration management is needed. The Service Management Office is a logical choice to oversee the effectiveness of customer and supplier integration within the service provider. Should now be seeing the next slide. This slide shows a simple model of customer integration. It only shows the key interfaces with a single external service provider, whereas in reality there will usually be many. You can see for yourself the key elements of this model. Managed service providers face the ongoing challenge of delivering cost-effective IT services to the customers that enable the required outcomes to be achieved. It's therefore important to have effective and efficient processes that underpin those services, and this means standardization. Where a new customer has little service management capability of their own, it may be better for the customer to use the service provider's processes rather than develop their own. Where customers have their own established processes, potential conflict may arise between the opportunity to achieve economies of scale by adopting the provider's standardized processes and tools and the need to retain the customer's processes because they are well aligned to their business needs. Hence, a decision needs to be made as to the best way to proceed. So we should now be on the next slide. Now, apologies, the text is a little bit small. Hopefully you can read that. So this slide shows a sample supplier integration model. For the integration of multiple service providers, particularly in large environments, it makes sense that the customer defines the engagement model. As the need for clarity in engagement is paramount, and trying to fit in with multiple service providers' differing customer integration models is likely to introduce unnecessary complexity to no advantage to the customer. This does not mean that service providers need to make drastic changes to their engagement models, but that the customer defines the process interfaces, interlocks, roles and responsibility, and how ITSM data will be exchanged and held. Right at the top of the slide we have the clients. At the next level down, under client business operations, we can see the various levels of governance that relate back to our integrated governance model, i.e. the Lifecycle Management Office and the Service Management Office. The service integration and management level is where we mesh with our service providers. And once more, it maps onto the ICT governance model. Shown are some of the key aspects of the management and integration, such as service assurance, which is where Roger's team sits. Below that is where the internal and the internal and external service providers sit and operate the services you see listed at the bottom of the screen, such as infrastructure management. And they are assisted in this by the integration of processes, tools, and the integration of the service desk. So very quickly, just to summarize. Be clear on what you are outsourcing, why and the benefits, understand the ITSM governance, ensure process alignment, rules and ownership of ITSM data and tools, and put that in your RFP, so it's part of your contract, understand roles, responsibilities, conduct due diligence, retain control through service strategy, use service portfolio management to decide IT service investment options, work closely with your customer provider, and look at the Lifecycle Management Office and the Service Management Office as key ICT governance to help you with effective supplier and customer management. Thank you. Now handing back to Greg.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, Bob, that was really interesting and really, I'm sure everyone's got a lot out of that. Please remember to include some questions there. We're looking forward to getting to you and giving you a bit more insight to those strategies towards the end of the presentation. But just to give you a bit of an update at the moment, I'll throw the keyboard across the ditch over to Roger. Roger is, of course, the Quality Service Manager, Quality and Service Assurance Manager at Datacom Systems. He's based in Wellington, New Zealand. Roger, how is the weather over in Wellington today?
The sun's shining beautifully. It's 22 degrees.
Fantastic. Well, I'll just pass the keyboard over to you and we'll just get the presentation across. And there we go. So, Roger, you're going to give us a few insights into capability assessments.
I indeed am. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Bob, for the invitation to participate in this webinar. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on the role of quality and service assurance and the use of the ProActive Capability Assessment Portal within Datacom Wellington. By way of introduction, for those of you that don't know Datacom, Datacom was founded in Christchurch in 1965 and has operated successfully since then across New Zealand, as well as expanding operations to Australia and Asia. With over 4,000 staff across New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia and Singapore, and a projected turnover for 2013 of over 850 million New Zealand dollars, Datacom is the largest New Zealand-owned IT service provider and the third largest in the total New Zealand market. We have achieved steady growth over the last 46 years with staff growth and in parallel with revenue growth. It is our purpose to deliver value to our customers through the best use of information technology, and we seek to establish long-term relationships through value-based outcomes. Datacom designs, builds and runs business-critical systems for businesses and government entities of all sizes all around New Zealand and Australia. We provide our services in three main areas: IT management, software development and integration, and business process services. IT management services include infrastructure outsourcing and managed services. Datacom provides a flexible range of services that allow clients to completely or partially outsource management of their information technology with confidence. We run data centres. We have 2 new data centres, Orbit in Auckland and Kapua in Hamilton, which is due to be commissioned this month, plus existing data centres in Wellington and Christchurch. Infrastructure as a service. Datacom was appointed to the New Zealand All-of-Government IaaS panel recently, and Datacom's cloud service for government is now successfully supplying services to a number of New Zealand government clients. IT service management also includes IT consulting, IT procurement, nationwide engineering support, and unified comms for both voice and data. The software integration team is New Zealand's largest developer and integrator of business applications, websites and intranets. Its core competencies include Microsoft .NET and Java development, as well as a full range of consulting, design and analysis skills. Our business services include payroll products and services, business process outsourcing and contact centres. It's surprising how many times when you pick up the phone and ring a contact centre you end up talking to a Datacom employee, although you won't know it. My own quality and service assurance team sits within the client services team within the IT management group in Wellington. The role was established in 2008 with 2 objectives: to ensure that all delivery functions consistently meet the outcome expectations of their customers by the application of best practice processes, and to ensure that Datacom is positioned to demonstrate to its customers and prospects its use of and adherence to best practice processes in the delivery of service management. The team has grown from 1 to 3 since 2008. And that's as a result of us successfully delivering to our internal customers. When we first started the Q&S role, Datacom had previously adopted iTool as the basis for its process development. The various teams had developed their own process documentation, so my first task was to create a core set of process documentation that aligned to iTool and to our own best practice IP. We aim to have all of our support staff iTool Foundation certified. This ensures that when they are talking the same language and understand why we do things in the Datacom way. Initially, when we created the Quality and Service Assurance role, we started our assessments and we developed our own set of questions to use to audit the team's processes. Whilst this was okay for our own internal improvement, we were seeing more and more RFPs and customers asking for evidence of iTool alignment and more recently specific iTool maturity scores for key services. So we looked around for an assessment tool. We couldn't find a good free self-assessment tool out there. Unfortunately, the old OGC V2 tool had not been upgraded to V3. We have had a long relationship with ProActive, who have been providing training services for us for many years and have previously performed iTool V2 maturity assessments for us on a consultancy basis. So when we heard that they had developed the CAP tool, we were very interested in having a look. After evaluating CAP, we licensed it and have been using it as our key tool for the last 18 months. We have also been able to provide some feedback to ProActive on improvements to the portal, and I'm pleased to say that Bob has acted on these, and we just recently received an upgraded version with some of our recommendations included. Just to cover off how CAP works, CAP allows us to measure in an objective way our capability maturity score based on an ISO 15504 standard. There are approximately 50 questions per service covering the 6 dimensions shown. So with 20-odd iTool services, you can see that's a significant number of questions to be asked of people. Each question is scored using the rating chart shown. What we found particularly useful is that one only has to gain a greater than 85% mark to get the fully achieved score. This allows teams to get the F despite the odd occasion when process is not followed. We have incorporated the CAP tool into our continuous service improvement cycle. Our support teams are structured into a number of dedicated teams for the larger accounts and a leveraged team for the remainder. We work with the GM of the account to agree a schedule of processes to be reviewed. We then schedule interviews with the key staff to answer the questions in the portal. We try to get a good cross-section of staff, including the operational teams, management, and the customer for some questions. We also review all the evidence and systems that are in use to ensure that they are doing what they say. Once we have collected all the information, we upload it into the CAP and export the results into a Word document. The CAP report provides the scores against the CMMI 5-point scale and displays this in a spider graph form by each measured dimension. Plus, it provides a list of recommendations for improvement. We then add our own commentary and recommendations. These tend to be much more Datacom specific based on the interviewer's observations. These may not necessarily win us any more maturity points, but do allow us to improve how we deliver the services. As an example of the output from CAP, here's a couple of spider graphs. The purple line shows the actual scores compared to the blue average score. This gives us an immediate understanding of which dimensions are underachieving. We have also developed our own spreadsheets for demonstrating and trending improvement. This spreadsheet shows down the left-hand column the services, and on the right the results by assessment date. The bar at the bottom shows the current average maturity score across all the processes. We've further refined that information to show this representation against our target scores. It shows quite graphically the improvements across each review. The results and recommendations are then discussed with the account GM and are added to the service improvement plan. From here they are prioritised and assigned to individual owners to implement. My team then provides assistance with the delivery of the improvements. Then of course we start over again and remeasure at an agreed date to ensure that the improvements have been achieved and reflected in the new score. There have been a number of benefits accruing through the use of the CAP and the work of my team. As an example of staff improvements, we developed a training module for problem management and root cause analysis. The feedback we received from the attendees was fantastic, and we continue to see the benefits as they apply the knowledge in their day-to-day working. Although some of our teams had their own CSI registers, there was no coordinated approach. All of these registers have now been amalgamated into the one register and managed centrally along with the CAP review recommendations. This has had tangible positive results for all concerned. Two of our most recent contracts included the requirement to achieve a particular ITIL maturity score for certain processes. The first of these requirements was met thanks to measuring and implementing the recommendations and remeasuring to achieve the score required. The second has just completed the first phase of the audit and has passed all the requirements, which is most pleasing to both me and the GM of that team. Both these customers were prepared to accept our internal quality and service assurance audit results as we were able to demonstrate our independence and use of an acceptable tool in the CAP. Continuing the benefits, as my team has conducted the reviews, we have learned much about how the business operates. This has allowed us to make recommendations that have improved specific processes. For example, we have recommended changes in the change management workflow that have improved the time to approve changes. Again, as I said earlier, this doesn't necessarily reflect in an increased maturity score, but it does allow us as an organisation to improve the quality of our service. By having a standard set of processes for the support services, we are able to work with new clients to more easily assimilate their operation into ours. Where they have specific requirements, we are able to handle these by maintaining separate appendices to our standard model for each client. So where to next? Well, it's said if you stand still in this industry, you go backwards compared to your competition. So for us, it is definitely a case of continual improvement, both in how we deliver our current services and in developing new services. The CAP tool is providing us with the mechanism to measure and demonstrate our improvement and will continue to be an integral part of our CSI approach. New offerings such as infrastructure as a service bring their own unique requirements for services. As an example, capacity management becomes more of a requirement for us now as the owners of the infrastructure than it did when we were only the support agency as in our usual outsource agreement. I'd just like to pick up on a couple of points that Bob mentioned in his opening presentation. One point he mentioned was pure maturity of client organisations become risks for MSPs. We certainly see this when measuring ITIL maturity. Some of our questions relate to the business behaviours and interfaces. For example, if the business does not have mature change processes and behaviours, it will reflect on the supplier. CAB meetings, for example, need business representation and involvement. If this is not forthcoming, the client doesn't always know what, the supplier doesn't always know what the business requires. Also, if areas of the business try to circumvent the process, this can put real pressure on the service supplier to meet their SLAs. Another example in capacity management, to be fully mature needs the business to be doing strategic planning and including the IT supplier for their IT capacity plan to be developed. The second point that Bob talked about was customers may not get the cost savings they are looking for with their MSP due to lack of involvement from supplier and misalignment of expectations. Here at Datacom, we strive to work as part of our client's IT management team. For some of our larger clients, our account managers work on the client site and are fully involved in the customer's management processes. We have seen an increasing requirement for outsourced providers to take on the service integrator role for all service provided to the client. This goes beyond what used to be called the prime supplier, where one supplier took the lead in a consortium of suppliers. Our answer to this problem was to develop the Unified Services Management Service. Customer and all suppliers need to work as a team. Partnership is not just talked about, but is acted upon. You will note that there is no mention of systems, tools or processes in our critical success factors for the Unified Services Management. All the best systems, tools and processes in the world cannot make up for lack of any of these core factors. Trust, which has to be earned, empowerment, which has to be given, typically by the client to the supplier to act on their behalf. Attitude, a positive attitude needs to be shown by all concerned, and maturity needs to be displayed. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation, so I'll hand back to Greg at this point.
Thanks very much, Roger. That was really great. A lot of good questions coming through from people there, and I'm sure we've got a lot of interesting material there from everyone. So we'll just take a breather for a moment. Please make sure to keep an eye on your emails in the next couple of days for a special offer from ProActive and this webinar resource pack, which will also include the recording of the webinar. So if you want to go back over any detail, you will be getting a link to the recording to be able to watch at your leisure. So that said, again, if you'd like to type a few questions, and we have a few, but have space for some more and a bit of time just to get all that together. So kicking off, Roger, maybe if I can start with you.
Yep.
One thought we had was, do you expect to achieve maturity level 5 at any time in the future, and have you seen a progression in your maturity levels using CAP?
We've certainly seen a progression in our maturity levels. On the slide that I put up, although I slightly doctored it to remove the customer's name and a few other things, we have through, as I say, we've been going now for about 18 months, and in that time, for a couple of our account teams, we've been through the process at least once and are partway through the second step for that. So we've seen significant improvements around, for example, incident management going like half a point up from somewhere just below 3 to somewhere just over 3. Do we expect to get to 5? I suppose the logical answer would be yes, of course we could get there if we continued to take every instance of where we're not achieving what's required and doing something about it. Will we get there? I doubt it very much. When one gets towards the higher end numbers, it's usually expensive to put in place the technology and the functionality to achieve some of that integration level type stuff, which is what's looked for. And the value that our customers will get out of us moving that far ahead is probably not realisable. Does that answer it?
Yeah, that's a good answer. And just to follow up on that, Roger, do you see much difference in the progression between the clients in terms of the amount of integration you have with their management practice? I know you didn't mention that that's one of the key factors. Does that reflect in the COP assessments for the different teams and clients you do?
Absolutely. I mentioned the point that the maturity of the client has a direct impact on the maturity of Datacom as a supplier to it. We're certainly seeing that with one of our latest clients. As I said, we've just done the first assessment for them around a number of key services, and we're running at well over 3 in terms of the maturity of those processes, which includes the maturity of the customer.
Fantastic. Oh, Roger, we'll let you just take a breath there for a moment. This next question is for Bob. Bob, does the CAP use both the ISO 15504 framework and CMMI in its assessment process? And if it does, how do the two models integrate?
Right, the Capability Assessment Portal uses the Process Maturity Framework as recommended and documented in one of the ITIL books. So the Process Maturity Framework is actually, as Roger put up in his slide, multi-dimensional. So it's not just about process, it covers others such as people, it covers culture, it covers technology, it covers leadership and vision, and we added a 6th one, so there's 5 which come with it. We added a 6th one which is interfaces, so you could look at the interfaces and the effectiveness of those between the related processes. So that's the first thing. The second thing, 15504 has been used where it was sensible to do so. It was used specifically to for the questions, the way the questions have been defined, which is fully complies, largely complies, partially complies, does not comply. So 15504 has been used for that. In terms of the actual maturity model, the process maturity frame. So the process maturity model uses a score of 1 to 5. So it uses 1 to 5, and we use 15504 for the questions.
Fantastic. And Bob, going back to the customer-supplier integration, your assessment as you get around the industry, what percentage of the industry actually gets the sort of stuff you were talking about and understand the level of commitment they need to make in terms of people and of dollars, in your opinion?
Well, I think that varies widely. I think the key point here is that is how many people are actually driving that from an IT service management perspective rather than just a vendor management perspective and a contractual perspective. So I think there's probably not a lot of people who have got multi-vendor engagements right in terms of the things we discussed, which is process alignment, making sure that roles and responsibilities across the engagement are properly defined, and the third one, which was, I think, exchange of data through the ITSM tools. So I don't know that there's a large number of people who have got that completely right. I mean, it's obviously working, it works, but when I think you dig down into some of those things like, well, how well is your problem management process working? And I think in that case you find that there is no properly defined interface between the customer's problem management process and the supply management process. So it comes down to each individual supplier as to how they do that, and the customer does not seem to have a lot of control. So, and I think then when you look at the life cycle management office and the need for the everything that you're doing, whether it's internal or external, really to map onto your life cycle in an effective way, I think some of that is still quite new in the industry. So I think a lot of people are still operating internally and externally on organisational structure. This is very much about the silos rather than integration of the silos. That was the short answer.
Very good. And just following on from that, do you have any suggestions in terms of strategies that the businesses should integrate to actually help address that issue of bringing it to the team of the different offices rather than the silos?
Right. What was that again?
What strategies should we utilise to actually break down that silo mentality?
Well, I think that has to start from the top. So you need to get the engagement, understanding of the CIO, the senior leadership team. I think you need to look at business IT alignment and get an understanding of how well IT is aligned to the business. You then need to start looking at the vision, IT's vision of what they need to do to support the business, and you need to define what you need to look like in terms of that integrated life cycle in the future. So understand where you are now, including business IT alignment, define your vision, define what you need to look like in order to deliver effectively and efficiently and to demonstrate business value, and then you put together a program of work to achieve that outcome. Yeah. So, but it does, if you're not talking to the CIO and the leadership team and you haven't had a chance to talk to the business, then extremely important things like management commitment, business sponsorship, all those things, if you haven't done those, then it's not going to work. Yeah. So there's no point starting. Yeah, so you can see why a fresh pair of eyes can be a real value to that sort of process as well. Yeah, well, I think it's, I think the important thing is that you're not trying to remove the silos, because that's obviously a mission impossible. What you're trying to do is make sure that everybody is aligned, and they're aligned to the outcome, which is delivering the value to the business in a way that the business actually will acknowledge, and that you're delivering service. You're not there to play around with the latest server or get into the latest network technology. Fantastic, thanks. And Roger, we'll get you back there if we have you.
Yes, Greg.
Have you considered going for ISO IEC 20000 certification, as people are becoming more aware of it as a recognised differentiator, especially for suppliers of cloud services?
It's come up within Datacom many times over many years. My management answer has always been that we trust our customers to understand what we do for them, and we rely on our delivery of service rather than on a recognising a qualification number.
Okay.
So the short answer is probably no.
Okay. And another question for you, Roger. Would you be able to expand for us on your view of the value of conducting the interviews when measuring capability versus conducting a survey?
The way we do it by interviewing, we interview probably 5 people across each service. So, for example, if we're doing incident management, we'll interview somebody from the service desk, we'll interview somebody from the way in which we're set up, which is to have an incident management team. We'll interview somebody from second level, we'll interview probably the manager of the service desk, and we'll certainly interview somebody from one of our customer sites. What that gives us is an opportunity to get a cross-section of views. We also get the opportunity to actually look at our internal processes and services. So we've got full access to the tools that the service desk use to log the incidents against, and we can actually look at a cross-section of incidents over a period of time to see the quality that's been applied to those incidents, as well as to understand whether they followed the process flow. What we then do is that the person that's doing the interviews will come up with the decision about what score they want to put in across using the 4-table score based on all of that evidence and all of the input from the various people. You know, we'll get a manager, for example, saying, yes, my team works very well with everybody else, and then when we talk to some of the people that are involved, they'll tell us that, well, sometimes we're always getting misaligned calls, or we're getting this. So we'll take that into consideration, and we'll come up with a single score based on all of that evidence. I think if you do it through a survey, you just get one answer from somebody.
Yeah. Thank you. And coming back to you, Bob, what do you see as the difference between a customer integration model and a supplier integration model?
Right. Good question. So there is the difference really is that the customer integration model is the supplier's view of the world. So ideally the supplier will have to find a model, or it might be more than one model, for the onboarding and integration of a customer. And that means it's going to be quick and easy for the supplier. Now, the supplier integration model is the customer view of the world. So you know, there's probably those two are probably you could say they have the wrong name. But the supplier integration model is when you, as the customer, have multiple service providers, or you might even have one service provider, and you need, for a variety of reasons, to dictate how that engagement is going to work. Now, remembering you're not asking your provider to change the way they do everything and to chuck away their own customer integration model. What you're saying is you need alignment to work in a certain way, you need interfacing to work in a certain way, you need to understand the roles, responsibilities, and you need to have agreement around the integration of service management tools, the exchange of data, and the holding of the data. So they're just, one is the customer integration model is what the supplier would put together, the supplier integration model is what the customer would put together, where they're not going to just take the provider's customer integration model as it stands.
Thank you very much. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time there today. We greatly appreciate it. We'll just do a little bit of a wrap-up, but you'll see on your screen at the moment the contact details. I'm sure, Bob, if anyone wants any more details on CAP or anything we've discussed about today, you or any of the team from ProActive would be more than happy to talk through with anyone on and discuss how they might be able to benefit their business using CAP. And thank you very much for your attendance. Remember, watch your email over the next 48 hours for your webinar resource pack and special offer from ProActive. We greatly appreciate ProActive support, and Bob, your support here today. And also, Roger, we are extremely thankful for your time in sharing with us and giving us a bit of insight into how Datacom is using CAP in managing their business and improving their service delivery. Upcoming events, we have our ITSMF professional development seminars coming up around the country in a capital city near you, and you'll see the dates and times on the screen there. In Tasmania, there's going to be a number of hot topics looking at putting out the fires, which is a very timely issue as well. So if you have an afternoon free to be able to learn more about service management, we would love to see you along at one of our state branch seminars over the next few weeks. As we mentioned before, our national conference is coming up on the 7th to 9th of August. We're going to be in Canberra. It is going to be a fantastic show with around 70 different presenters, extremely high quality, and a huge expo demonstrating all range of service management tools, software, training, all the supplies that you need in your business. We're looking forward to seeing you there in Canberra. So watch the website and email for those. So everyone, thank you very much for your attendance today. We do appreciate it. There will be a link with the webinar resource pack for the recording of today's webinar. And Bob, Roger, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you again, everyone.
Thanks, Roger.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everybody.